Moving on, the other game, I feel it's crazy to say this, between ranked teams in the SEC. Show your gold, Vandy fans. 5-2 ranked Vanderbilt hosting Texas. The Longhorns beaten up at the line of scrimmage last week in the loss to Georgia. Pretty crazy game. We saw Quinn Ewers get kind of pulled and settled down, I guess was the quote that Steve Sarkisian used about feeling like he just needed to settle Quinn down and thought maybe Arch could go in and do something. And Arch really didn't do much either. Quinn actually played well in the second half. But Sammy, do you think this opened up a little bit of a quarterback controversy here? Sark has been pretty steadfast about this being Quinn's team, and to make a move like that in a big game, I think was a little weird. Look, I trust Sark offensively and with his quarterbacks, but I think there is a faction of fans and media types out there that are asking the question right now: is Texas maybe better with Arch at the helm?
Oof, it's a big debate in Austin, and I do a radio show every Friday with a guy who's covered the team for a long time, and he's like, Sark, by default, trusts the older players. He is a ride or die with experience. And when he benched Ewers in the first half, the guy texted me something that I can't repeat on the show. So he panicked. He panicked. And then he went back to Ewers, which kind of worked a little bit, but really what I took away from that game was Georgia's defensive line manhandled Texas. And it was so funny because we sat on this program last week as they were betting Texas up. Not only were they laying 3.5, but they were laying 4 and 4.5 to 5. And I thought, and I even said, I could never lay 5 with Texas. Could never in a million years lay 5. It didn't matter who they were playing. Well, it did matter who they were playing, but I was never laying the worst of the number from 3.5 to 4 to 4.5 to 5. It was never happening. And Georgia pinned their ears back and whooped their ass in the trenches. Got through that offensive line all night long. That was alarming. Can Vanderbilt do that? No. So let's not overreact and think because Georgia did it, Vandy could do it. But there is that school of thought, Geoff, and you would know this more than any of us. When you play a team like Georgia, you feel it all week in practice, and it does hit you that following game. So I'm curious what it's like when you play a physical team. Does it really take its toll in that following game? I wouldn't know. Look at me. You would know though.
I think when you're that nerd, four-eyed nerd over there talking about football, how dare you? Look, a couple of things here. One, these kids are young, right? So their wear and tear is going to be a little bit different as you get older. But Sammy, I think when you get your ass beat like they did, and you're exactly right, their offensive line played the worst game of the season. I was quite frankly shocked to see that offensive line play that poorly in general. Because you got your butts whooped, I think there's a renewed focus to play well this week. If it's a close game and you got kind of whooped, I think it's a little different mindset. But because of how bad it went and how good the offensive line can be, I think there's going to be a focus this week, a renewed effort in sort of making sure it doesn't happen again. Plus, they have a bye after Vanderbilt, right? So, you know, mentally, I'm sure the coaches say, hey, guys, look, man, like we got one more game. Let's go redeem ourselves, and then we get a week off and can rest and recover. So I think when you get blown out this badly, good teams react in a way where they go and whoop up on Vandy. If they're not a good team, then this game will be close, right? And I think Texas is a good football team. They're better than Vanderbilt, I think, everywhere. I think Quinn Ewers will play and be fine. And I do think this team is mentally tough. But again, throughout this season, we have seen when a sort of a team played their first sort of opponent that matched them talent-wise and intensity-wise and coaching-wise, that team sort of lost the first game, right? Georgia lost to Bama, right? Ohio State lost to Oregon. We talked about Ohio State's schedule leading up to that game. And then Texas loses to Georgia, right? Michigan's not Georgia, guys. They're not even close. We'll talk about Michigan in a second. So I think I lean towards Texas bouncing back here. I'm not sure I'm laying the number with them, but I think they do play better on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm afraid to lay it with Texas just because Vandy does have that formula as an underdog with Pavia shortening the game, shortening the clock, running the play clock. Now, I don't know if Pavia's 100%, which, does give you some pause here. But look at this Texas schedule. Mississippi State, Colorado State, Oklahoma, Michigan. I mean, where is the impressive data point? All of these teams, all of these data points have aged sort of poorly. Maybe an under here, maybe an under just because outside of the offensive line, I don't know that Texas, there's just not a lot of juice on offense. And they did play well defensively. You can't put that on the defense last week. It was all, that was all the Texas offense. So if Pavia is 100%, I could see this game being close. But Bear, if anything, for me, it'd be an under.
Yeah, and that you just alluded to the schedule, and that was one of the reasons why we kind of kicked around some ideas last week about if you really wanted to get frisky and maybe take a Texas to miss the playoff kind of deal, or an under 10.5 wins or under 11 wins. Say kind of the worst case scenario. Assume that they lose to Georgia and they lose to Texas A&M, and they don't have a win over a team that's ranked, and you're looking at maybe a 7-5 Michigan team being your best win, and like could that like possibly happen? So, and by the way, I think a good job by I'm going to pat us on the back last week for the Ball State Vandy game. We kind of hinted at it, how it was just kind of a brutal spot for Vandy, and there we were in the fourth quarter with the old boys from Muncie tied up there when before Vandy ultimately wound up pulling away. So we'll see if Vandy can get back up this week after that murderer's row of games, and then the kind of the sandwich look ahead game. But feels like it would be Vandy plus the points or pass for me. Don't know if I can get there or not. I think what Sammy was saying about like the physical toll of that game, and maybe like the realization of a loss setting in, like maybe there's maybe a Vandy first half kind of deal. I think there are potentially ways to play this game.
Bear Bets full episodes drop twice a week right here on the Bear Bets YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to stay ahead of the odds, and let's celebrate all of our wins together.